Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.
Don't just dream about paradise. Live it with Fiji Airways. Escape the ordinary with Fiji Airways Cyber Monday sale. Immerse yourself in white sandy beaches or dive deep into coral reefs. Fiji Airways has flights to Nadi starting at just $719 for light and just $749 for value. Discover your tropical dreams at FijiAirways.com. That's FijiAirways.com. From here to happiness, flying direct with Fiji Airways.
Stoveleg Media, igniting conversation.
Trick or treat thinkers, it's me, your girl, your host, Elena Grace, and we're sliding into this Halloween weekend with a fun, funny, not so spooky Halloween episode. So, welcome to it. I have brought on my boyfriend, Adam, one of our favorite guests. He has been on the pod a few times at this point, so if you've been listening for a while, you know him, you know his voice, you know his personality, or lack thereof sometimes, and you know that he is very skeptical of all things. So that's why I love to bring him on and read real life supposed paranormal experiences to him, because it's just a lot of fun to hear this man who literally doesn't believe in anything at all try to come up with like explanations for things, right? Just a lot of fun, and to talk about theories with him. Also, I will say he does believe in random weird things. Like, you're going to hear a story about the Fae in today's episode. Adam is super intrigued by those, which is really funny to me. But anyway, we have a handful of really awesome stories, so I hope that you guys enjoy them. They're like awesome in a believable way. You know what I'm saying? They're not like over the top, sound like a creepypasta kind of story. They're definitely things that you can see Joe Blow down the road experiencing potentially. And I think that that is what makes them really interesting. So I hope that you enjoy this spooky inspired episode, even though it probably won't give you the heebie-jeebies. I hope that you enjoy Adam and I talking about theories, and you chuckle at Adam's dryness. And I hope that you enjoy this episode of I've Been Thinking, as always. Thank you guys for being here. Make sure that you follow along wherever you listen. Make sure that you follow us on social media so you keep up with everything. Check out the Patreon if you want exclusive content. And check out the website, I'veBeenThinkingPod.com, for the sources for tonight's episode. Okay? All right. Love you guys so much. Happy Halloween. Here's Adam.
I'm Adam Krabs. Never mind. Scratch that. Don't say that. Edit it out.
Okay. Can do. Be a little louder, by the way.
Is this for an intro?
Well, I do the intro separately, remember?
No.
Adam, I swear, if you don't start listening to my podcast...
I support you in so many ways.
You do support me in so many
You
ways.
expect me to just take in all of this.
Yeah. Give me some listens.
Yeah, I listen to you talk enough.
God bless America. Introduce yourself.
Hello, I am Adam. I'm Elena's sugar daddy.
They've met you before. If they've been listening for a while, they've met you before.
Well, you asked me to introduce myself.
I know, I'm just saying. Anything else you'd like to say?
I'm here.
You sure are. And Adam is a skeptic. He is skeptical of all things, but especially the paranormal. So that is what makes our Halloween episodes so fun. We really like to do this. We did this, I don't think we did it last year. Maybe we did. I can't remember, but we've definitely done this once before where I tell Adam spooky stories or like real life paranormal encounters, or real life, like something happened to somebody. So we've got a little variety show tonight. I've got some spooky real life stories that I found on Reddit. And then I've also got a few that were told to me by people that I know. So really fun, don't you think?
Very much so.
Yeah. So what do you want to start with? Do you want to start with like aliens or ghosties?
Just hit me.
Just hit you? Okay. Well, let's see. Let's just start with this one. So this one is from Reddit. It is an unusual spirit in a dream. So the title, don't read them. You're supposed to react.
Sorry.
While I read it to you. So the title is Unusual Spirit in Dream Right Before Halloween. So I've had unusual dreams before, but last night's dream was very different. Most of it wasn't memorable, ordinary day-to-day stuff in my home, but for virtually the whole dream, there was a spirit of some sort that would linger near me. It spooked me a few times since it was quietly standing there, and I would get startled when I turned and it was right there or suddenly noticed it was next to me, but it didn't give off any hostile vibes. Whenever I looked at it, even in surprise, it would just look back at me and nothing else. If I could put any word to the vibes it gave, it seemed a bit lonely and peaceful, and it stuck close throughout the whole dream. I'm used to working with nature spirits and having them around, but this spirit seemed very different. The spirit had a lanky, tall shadow body with a broken skull, floating around the face area and a red glowing heart in their chest. What?
The Grinch.
I'm not sure if it's relevant, but I work with Anubis. This person does spirit work with Anubis, the Egyptian god. And I have had dreams about pets that have passed over, including one about carrying my late family's dog, quote, home after finding him lost somewhere, but this is new territory for me. I've been trying to figure out what to make of it ever since. A friend of mine suggested looking into Santa Muerte and Dia de los Muertos after I showed them a quick drawing of the spirit and suggested that since I'd visited Mexico somewhat recently, that might have something to do with all of this. It's also interesting that this dream happened right before Halloween with Dia de los Muertos coming up too. Has anyone else encountered a spirit like this? Could it be a ghost or a lost soul? What can I do to help them? Are you ready for this photo? I'm going to put this in the post for this episode. Look at that. That's spooky. That is spooky. It's like, I mean, for the listener, you can find this on like the blog post or on the Instagram post about this. But this is literally like a shadow with just the top part of a skull and a heart.
I wouldn't say that looks friendly to me.
No, that doesn't look friendly to me either. And there's no comments on it. I'm not going to lie to you. I didn't vet this person to see if they
You need to vet her.
do
Did
this
you hear
a
what
lot.
She claims she's psychotic and needs help.
She just posted that same story to a bunch of different places. But that's the only like spooktacular story she has. So, I mean, maybe it is, she's got a few plant situations. Maybe it's real. Like, maybe it's not like a creepypasta. What do you think?
I think it was a dream.
Oh, gosh. All right. Well, that was fun. Moving on. My mom's childhood ghost friend who might have been a Holocaust victim. Oh, I should say, I don't know how to say all of these Reddit names, but they'll be in the blog post for this too. Everything's going to be cited. Don't worry. So if you hear your story, lots of love. My mom's childhood ghost friend who might have been a Holocaust victim. My male, 19 years old, grandparents are renovating their apartment, which my mother, aunt, uncle, and I grew up in. As the family is together on Diwali today, we reminisced about the past, but no one has fond memories of this house. It lays in the same area that Atlantic Wall used to be. I'm so sorry if I said that wrong. I probably did. My uncle and mother told me on separate occasions they found Nazi flags, coins, posters, and newspapers from during the German occupation hidden behind the walls and underneath the floors. That's super interesting. After my mom left my dad in 2011, we lived in this house for almost a decade. She still firmly believes the energy here is negative and refuses to even sleep over because the floors used to creak on their own during her childhood. For years, my mother has been telling me the same story, which happened between 1980 and 1990, of this 5-year-old Jewish boy with a black cat she used to play with from 5 to 7 years old. She knows his name, exactly describes what clothes he wore and the color of his hair, and tells me that he used to tickle and irritate her if she refused to play with him. The boy even sat at the dinner table next to my mom, but my grandparents made fun of her for having an imaginary friend. Whew. The boy snooped out of the house by climbing over the balcony, but he used to tell my mother that his parents allowed her to play at his house. The very last time my mother had this encounter was after I was born in 2003, when this black cat ran down the stairs. What makes it even weirder is that my grandparents got new neighbors 2 years ago who were expecting a child at the time. After their baby daughter was born, her room was next to where my mother's room used to be. Their baby would cry non-stop, all day, every day. We thought something was wrong, but my mother thinks the boy was taunting her. My mom wants an explanation for what she experienced, and she's been telling me the exact same story for years with details unchanged and never fully got over it. We believe he was a Holocaust victim, but don't know in which records we can start searching. Does anyone have a similar experience? What can I do? That kind of thing.
Yeah, I don't know about that one.
Oh, this comment. Somebody said, this sounds valid to me. What are you searching for? And the OP said, I found a record of a 7-year-old boy who died in Auschwitz, lived in the same city, and has the same first name in the Holocaust victim database. And then said, but why is the cat a ghost too? All I can do is speculate. That's interesting that he found a boy the same age that was from the same town with the same name.
A lot of people died, so...
I mean, yeah, obviously. Thank you for that, Captain Obvious.
So the probability of that happening, pretty decent.
Hope you guys are having fun with Adam.
My life's just a lot easier than yours, I guess.
Yeah, it is. So, well, let's do this. Let me tell you now the alien abduction story from my pal Tristan over at Extreme Common Sense, proudly presented by Stoveleg Media.
Nice plug.
Thanks. So, Tristan, thank you so much for this. Thank you so much for letting me tell this story. I had posted a while back and I was like, I really want some real life creepy stories from some of my friends and family. And honestly, you all suck because not many of you all actually sent me them. You were like, I'm going to send you.
Have any.
a lot of people were like, I'm going to send you mine, and then never got around to it. So, screw you guys. Not really, I still love you, but you did make me resort to Reddit. So, anyway, Tristan was like, this is kind of more of a creepy, like possibly alien story than ghosty. Do you still want it? And I was like, yeah, I want to hear it even more. So here it goes. He said, I went to a JROTC camp. That's junior ROTC for anybody who's not an Army brat. You're not going to laugh at me?
I'll laugh when it's funny.
I went to a JROTC camp circa 1996 at an old Army base. It may have been Fort Lee. And one night we did what was called a bivouac. Do you know what that means?
Nope.
BIVOUAC, which essentially means Army camping. We all go out into the woods. He might have spelled it wrong because he did it on his phone. No, do you know what that means?
I've seen the word before. I don't know what it is.
Oh, sorry about that, my phone. Okay. Bivouac. Anyway, which essentially means Army camping. We all go out into the woods, maybe 200 kids. We go to the old Vietnam era tents. We eat dinner, and at this point, I realized all the adults were gone. It was kind of surreal because there were a lot of sergeants and officers there, it felt like. So it felt like there was one adult for every 10 kids, so there were a lot of them, and they were all completely gone, and we were in the woods. So it kind of immediately turned very Lord of the Flies, running around, pillaging the other tents, fighting. It was really weird and surreal. Stop reading ahead. You can't do that. You always do that.
Sorry, I read.
So, this is the only time. So everything calmed down somewhat after midnight, and I went to my cot to sleep. Woke up hours later around 3 or 4 a.m., and I had sleep paralysis laying on my back. I could see the boots I was still wearing, but I was frozen. But the weird thing about it was I was surrounded by figures that were discussing me. I couldn't hear what they were saying, and they weren't moving, and they were very still. I wasn't scared, but I knew it was really strange. They were around me like pallbearers, kind of, and I felt like the experience was alien, but when I described it to a teacher I trusted when I got back, he said it seemed like a religious experience. I don't know WTF that night was, but it always stuck with me, and I woke up normal.
I mean, my first thing wouldn't go to aliens. But, I mean, it's very common for sleep paralysis victims to hallucinate.
But it's also like sleep paralysis, which is true. You're not wrong. But strange experiences that can often be validated with, like in other ways, often go hand in hand with sleep paralysis too.
I have no idea what you meant by that.
Like, you can have something happen to you that can be like proven and have sleep paralysis at the same time, and like those things can correlate.
I mean, I would need proof of that, but I don't know about it.
You don't know? Well, I told him that he's not allowed to call anybody like a bullshitter or something. Not that he would call Tristan a bullshitter, but he might.
I sure would.
Tristan, I love you. But, God, what was I going to say? I totally lost my thought. Oh, I want to know what you think about the teacher who told him it sounded like a religious experience.
Well, again, that makes no sense why she would think that.
Or he. Teachers can be male.
Okay, my bad.
Face the microphone. Yeah, I mean, it makes no sense why they would think that. But, well, I mean, I guess it does make sense if you've got somebody who Like, that's just their worldview is through a religious lens.
I guess, but how common is a quote-unquote religious experience?
I don't know. I guess it depends on...
I don't hear about that at all.
You're Catholic. Literally everything is... Well, you were raised Catholic. Literally everything is a religious experience.
Yeah, because you can make it one.
All right. Well, let's go somewhere else. Let's read about another alien encounter. How about that?
Sure. Is this one going to actually be about aliens?
I mean, maybe. Probably. This one is from Reddit. They said the title is just I was visited by aliens. And it's from 2 months ago. They said this is a personal experience that happened over a year ago, and it's been a mystery to me ever since. Any information explaining what possibly could have happened would be greatly appreciated. This is in New South Wales, Australia. I was at my aunt's holiday house in for the weekend. It was just a regular night, a little bit wet, but everything was normal. So it was around 11:40 p.m. and my dog was sleeping on my bed. And he quickly got up and started barking his head off to go outside, so I let him. This is unusual behavior for my dog. He runs to the other side of the backyard, which is about 15 meters away from the porch, and then he stops barking. I want you all to know that there is not a period in this story until the very end. Everything else is commas. I am having to...
Are they right like you?
Adam, the Oxford comma is totally different from a run-on sentence separated by commas.
Oh, okay.
So I'm having to decipher where pauses should be. So anyway, he was silent. I turned around for 2 seconds to look at my mom, who had just come out to see what was going on. And I turned back around, and my dog was just sitting in front of me on the porch like nothing happened. I don't know how he ran back so fast without me noticing, but here is the interesting bit. Me and my mom hear this loud buzzing sound, not like an electric sparking sound, nothing natural like we've ever heard before, and a bright lime green light came shining directly down, lighting up the whole backyard perfectly like a precise laser scan. And it happened twice. Shine and buzzing, pause, shine and buzzing, stop. There was a roof over the back porch, so I couldn't look up to see where it had came from, but my instant thought was aliens. That is the first period right there.
Wow.
The whole thing was so bizarre, like nothing I'd ever heard of or seen before, and it started as a deep buzz to a higher pitch buzz and back to a deep buzz with the green light as the buzzing was happening, and the whole thing stopped. Then my dog slowly crept inside and went back up to my bed and was whimpering. The light couldn't have been a power line because there would have been a shadow cast from the roof of the house, and sparks don't give off green light anyway, especially not as bright and neon as what I saw. Can anyone respond and explain or tell me about similar experiences?
Yeah, I don't know what that is, but I feel like that's very, not cliche. What's the word?
A trope? Overdone?
The lime green light just follows a lot of media, like movies and portrayals.
Yeah. But maybe that's for a reason. Maybe they're trying to trick us into not believing it.
Well, I believe if tractor rays were a thing, that there would be no color associated with it whatsoever.
Maybe. Hold on. What if aliens don't see color? Or they see color differently?
They're not racist.
Okay. That's the first funny thing you've said in this whole episode. So what if they see color differently? And so that's why, like, these beams might be neon or something else, because to them, it's clear. You know how shrimp can see, like...
I don't think it's all shrimp.
Well, some shrimp can see, like, tons of different colors.
It's the mantis shrimp.
Mantis shrimp, the most beautiful of all, can see so many different colors than we can. Yeah, obviously. So what if it's the same thing? What if we, being the shrimp to the higher beings of aliens, can see more colors than they can?
It's a good theory.
Right? Mm-hmm. Pretty strong. Pretty strong theory.
I wouldn't call it strong, but it's a good idea.
Solid. It's got some meat to it.
Again, you're overconfident.
I'm always overconfident. It's part of my brand. So, let's do one more. How about that?
Yeah.
What's wrong with you?
What?
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to end on my father's native great aunt is a shapeshifter. That piqued your attention.
Bring it on.
You like a flesh pedestrian story.
A what?
Flesh pedestrian. We don't say the SW word. What's it?
Oh, why not?
Because,
You can say it. You're not native.
first of all, I have some native ancestors. Second of all, what?
Nothing.
No, what are you about to say?
Nothing.
What are you about to say? Second of all, if I have a native listener, I don't want them to be like triggered by that word because that's a scary word. What? That can be a scary word.
They can hear it.
They don't necessarily want to.
Oh.
I've read so many places where can you turn the air conditioner off? I've read so many places where native people have said, like, in response to other podcasts telling these stories, like, hey, can you give a content warning or can you, like, use a different verbiage or something like that? Because that's actually really upsetting for me to hear. Plus, it's also, I was always taught that it's the kind of thing where if you say the words aloud, you are kind of opening the opportunity for them to
Beetlejuice.
find you. Yeah, so I just don't like to say it.
All right.
So, they say, take this story with a grain of salt as it does sound pretty unbelievable, but my father does claim that his great aunt is a shapeshifter / someone who can become an animal. And then they give a little context and they're like, I want to say that native families in my tribe have are a little confusing because they didn't really have words for like cousins or stepfathers or that kind of thing, just like direct relatives. And then so they give a little context around that. So I'm just going to skip through that though, because that feels not necessarily to this storytelling situation. They said, anyway, back to what you actually care about, the shapeshifter. Before my father left Oklahoma, he'd live with his mom and father and occasionally with his other family. So I'm going to assume that means like a step parent and parent in Carnegie. It was either the family in town or outside in the woods. Very few times he'd be with his family outside the town and would usually refuse to want to go stay there. To want to go stay there. It was a couple of cabin houses and it sucked having to stay there, he told me. But being so young, he'd usually have no say. His great aunt and cousins lived there from his mother's side, and the great aunt was very old, being 76 at the time. She only got up and about to cook, clean, use the restroom, and go to bed, even though she'd have trouble using a cane to get around. And even then, she'd have trouble using a cane to get around. She was also obese, which didn't help with her age and moving around. So sad. She'd spend most of her free time sitting down, knitting, and making quilts. One night, my dad asked her if he could go out in the woods to walk around, but because it was so late, she didn't let him. He asked her why, and she said there were wild animals and spirits in the woods that could hurt him after dark. My dad wasn't too convinced at the time, as he never believed any native legends or supernatural things, so he just figured she didn't want him to get attacked by a wild animal. This was before his encounter with small people, which I did post here a while ago. Maybe we should end with that one. But his cousins had overheard what was going on, and the older ones, who were her grandkids, said that she was very, very serious about the matter. They shared stories of creepy things happening in the woods after dark and even during the day. And they told him that even if he ever went into the woods alone during the day, to stay alert, because spirits there can cause you to get lost, and to go home if you hear silence in the woods. That's always true. If you hear silence in the woods, like, you shouldn't hear silence. There should always be something making noise. And if you do hear silence, if it ain't a spirit, it's probably a mountain lion stalking you.
I'd punch it.
Okay. Nature knows when something unnatural and supernatural is around, so all the animals and even the wind in the trees will go silent. They told him that animals in the woods aren't always animals and are, in fact, people unable to become human again. After telling him that, they let it slip about the ant being a shapeshifter. She didn't deny it and said it was true, but rarely became one because she never needed to anymore. Not convinced, my dad and his cousins asked her to prove it, and she agreed to and said she'd show him in the morning. Morning came, and of course they again pressured her to show them. She agreed and made everyone leave the cabin, told him to wait out there for 1 minute and to go to the other cabin and she'll be there. So they left and stood between cabins for 1 minute. While they waited, my dad said he saw a rat about as big as an eggplant run across the small field between the cabins. After he saw it go to the cabin, he ran in and saw his aunt sitting in a chair chuckling and clasping her hands. His other cousins, who didn't see the rat and also weren't her grandchildren, still didn't believe her and asked if she could do it again, and she did. She told them the same thing, to stand outside for a minute and come to the other cabin. So they did, and when my dad saw the rat, he pointed it out, and everyone saw it go to the other cabin. Heading back to the cabin she said she'd be in, she was there, in a chair, chuckling again. Maybe she was pulling their legs, but he claimed there was absolutely no way she could have gone from the one cabin to the other without them seeing. You see, the cabins they stayed at were built in a big field surrounded by woods, and the field was flat and open, and if anyone or anything went across the field to the other cabin, you would most definitely see it. Now, do I believe it? Maybe. Do I think she was a SW? No. I know hearing this you'd think that because it's a native person becoming an animal, but my dad said these things were just as normal as someone having a different gene trait, like somebody having a different looking feet or face. And some people in the Kiowa tribe can become animals. Just normal to them, I guess. I'd have to see or experience it to believe it, honestly, but if I was in his situation, I'd believe it.
It's a bad choice of animal.
Well, maybe she didn't get to choose.
Oh, that's short end of the stick on that one.
Well, but either way,
Cool.
it's honestly a pretty handy animal if you think about it.
You ever heard of birds of prey? No, it's not.
Let's see if I can find his story about... All right, here it is. It's from a month ago. All right. Native fathers' encounters with small people. All right, now this is the last one. Promise. Shout out to you, Bigfoot Samurai. Okay. A sort of follow-up to a post about my native grandmother's encounter with a giant owl. This man, he's got a lot going on. This is about my native dad instead, as he has had a few supernatural things happen to him and the rest of the family in Oklahoma as well. My dad would frequently encounter small little people. That's a quote, small little people.
Not like midgets?
No bigger than a pine cone.
What?
Called minipeds. His go-to story about the minipeds, when he was around 10 years old, he would go fishing in the lake near his childhood home. My grandpa would take him sometimes, but when he was at work or getting a treatment in Oklahoma City, my dad would go alone. The thing about the lake and creeks in the area were the mists that would roll in. Not too high, only about a foot off the ground, if not less, and it could cover most of the area for hours at a time. This particular time he went out fishing, He got closer and closer to the misty edge of the lake, and as he approached, he would hear voices. He originally thought it was the wind, but walking further along the path, he realized it was voices. Nothing he could recognize or understand, but definitely dozens of small little voices around him. Feeling a bit frightened, he made his way back home where my grandma was home. He told her about it, and she just told him everything was okay. Those voices were minipeds, and as long as you didn't bother them, they wouldn't bother you. In fact, if you should get lost at the lake, they could actually help you get home. Still scared, he didn't go fishing that day. The next morning, however, he had all but forgotten about the encounter and set off to go fishing again. Going down the same old path he always went down, he again noticed the mist a foot above the ground, and again small little voices. Keeping in mind what Grandma said about not bothering them, he just kept about his business and made it to the edge of the lake. The voices died down a bit, and he was able to enjoy fishing in peace. He said he fished for a good 2 hours or so before heading back home, and along the path he again heard the voices. And this time, however, along the misty path, he would see it move left to right as if something small under it was moving quickly and moving the mist in the process. He rarely saw a miniped, but the few times he did see them before moving to Texas, he said they were human-like, with gray skin or brown skin and only a few inches tall. When he encountered them again as an adult, he was fishing with my uncle on my mother's side. They went fishing pretty often when I was growing up, 5 times every summer it seemed. They either went to one of the lakes in the Panhandle area or New Mexico and, of course, Oklahoma. The one time they went to Oklahoma, they went to a lake close to the one he grew up at, only 50 miles or so west, and there they sat to get on a boat my uncle owned to fish on a lake, but on the way there was a mist, of course, and the sound of little voices. My dad thought nothing of it, but my uncle was starting to get confused, asking if my dad heard voices in the wind. He told him not to worry, and that they were just minipeds, and if you didn't bother them, they wouldn't bother you. Eventually, it freaked my uncle out too much, and he convinced my dad to go fish at a lake back at West Texas. He didn't see any that time, and I have yet to see one. Probably because anytime we visited family, it was in Oklahoma City, and we never went to a lake. I do hope to encounter them, and if my dad believes they exist, even in adulthood, then maybe they do.
I don't know what would be so terrifying about tiny little people.
Yeah, I don't either.
I'd be more fascinated than anything.
Well, yeah, for sure. This other, a commenter says, my brother and dad have seen and heard them. They told me about their experiences. My brother said they liked shiny things.
They're crows.
Crows. No, I mean, that's pretty typical of fae and, like, otherworldly creatures, is that otherworldly, like, human-like creatures, is that they like shiny things. It's basically just a...
Or maybe that's just a way of portraying them as having small minds.
Damn. That could be.
Mm-hmm.
But I like the portrayals of the fae in, like, European, well, in definitely Celtic folklore, where they're tall and beautiful and all of those things, of course. But also, they just love beautiful things. Mm-hmm. Like the elves in Lord of the Rings. They just love beautiful things. And with that, shiny things are beautiful, you know?
Yeah.
So I think personally that same idea, fae, minipeds, like water spirits, nymphs, dryads, all of those things, I think they're just spirits of a place. And that it's all kind of a very similar idea, but just, you know, different geographical locations around the world have different versions.
Yeah.
Okay, good talk.
I'm listening. I have nothing to add to that because I know nothing about it.
That's fair. Well, guys, thanks so much for joining us on this not at all creepy Halloween episode. Did you think it was creepy? Ever?
Nope.
No, wasn't creepy at all. Kind of fell flat on that. Don't know what I'm going to do about that. But yeah, thanks for joining us on this not at all creepy Halloween episode of I've Been Thinking. Thanks so much for listening. I hope it wasn't dry as hell. And lots of love.
See ya.
Hello, you sentient ball of stardust. My name is Casey Davis. I'm a therapist and I'm an author of the book How to Keep House While Drowning, where I talk about ways to make it a little bit easier to take care of yourself when you're overwhelmed, stressed, have mental health issues, physical health issues, or maybe you're just in a hard season of life. Maybe you're looking for a place that you can come and listen to some practical advice. This is a podcast for all of the self-help rejects. We're going to talk about skills for survival and self-kindness. And I'm going to leave the pop psychology at the door. I promise not to tell you to meditate or to journal. We're just going to give you some really insightful conversations with hopefully some practical advice. So I don't believe you need to pick yourself up by the bootstraps. I don't want you to just try harder, and I don't believe that laziness exists. So join me over on Struggle Care, where we can find compassionate solutions that help us function a little bit better.